There is something you do that almost nobody sees. When something good happens, something you've been waiting for, something you actually wanted, part of you immediately starts looking for what could go wrong. Not because you're ungrateful, not because you don't want good things, but because somewhere inside you, there is a system that has been running for a very long time, and that system does not trust good things to stay good, so it scans, it searches, it finds the crack in the foundation before anyone else has even noticed there is a foundation. You've been called negative, a worrier, someone who can't just enjoy things, someone who always has to find the dark cloud in the silver lining. And you've heard it so many times that some part of you has started to believe it. But psychology tells a completely different story. Catastrophizing is not pessimism. It is not a character flaw, or a thinking error, or evidence that something is broken in you. It is a protection system, one that was built for very good reasons. And there are 6 rare psychological traits that define people whose brains expect the worst. Traits that formed in specific people, for specific reasons, and that function with a precision most people will never understand. Once you understand them, you'll finally stop treating your own mind as the problem, because it never was. Trait 1. Your nervous system learned to scan for danger before danger announced itself. This is where it starts, not in adulthood, not in the anxiety you feel now, but earlier in a home or a childhood or a set of experiences where bad things sometimes arrived without warning, where the atmosphere could shift before you understood why, where you learned, through repetition, through the body, through the nervous system's extraordinary capacity to learn, that if you caught the signs early enough, you might be able to prepare, might be able to soften the landing, might be able to survive it with less damage than if it came out of nowhere. Psychology calls this threat anticipation, a learned neurological pattern in which the nervous system prioritizes scanning for potential danger, over resting in present safety. In simple terms, your brain was trained to treat the future as something that required watching. And it has never stopped watching. The strength here is real. You see things coming that others miss entirely. You prepare for outcomes that most people never consider until they're already happening. You are rarely blindsided. The cost is that a nervous system trained to scan for danger doesn't know how to stop scanning when the danger has passed. It keeps watching, even when there is nothing to watch for. But there is a trait beneath this one that explains why the scanning never feels like enough. Trait 2. Your brain has learned that hope is a liability. This is the one that almost nobody names because it sounds dark, but it isn't dark. It's logical. If you have ever hoped for something, genuinely, openly hoped, and then had that hope not just disappointed but collapsed, your nervous system took note. It registered the exact distance between where hope took you and where the fall landed, and it made a decision quietly, without asking you that the distance between hope and loss was too costly to risk again. And so it built a system that preempts the fall by never fully committing to the height. Psychology calls this defensive pessimism, a cognitive strategy in which a person deliberately lowers their expectations as a way of protecting themselves from the emotional impact of disappointment. In simple terms, if you expect the worst can't surprise you. And if something good happens instead, that's a bonus, not a betrayal of your defenses. The shadow side is the one you already know. You cannot fully inhabit good things because part of you is always holding back, always keeping one foot near the exit, always maintaining just enough distance to survive the fall you're certain is coming. The next trait is the one most catastrophizers never connect to their thinking, and this one surprised me. Trait 3. Your imagination is extraordinarily vivid, and it runs worst-case scenarios by default. Think about what actually happens when you catastrophize. It isn't just a thought, it's a movie. A detailed, fully rendered, emotionally convincing movie in which the worst possible outcome plays out in real time, complete with dialogue, consequence, and the feeling in your body of something that hasn't happened yet but already feels like it has. Psychology links this to what researchers call mental simulation, the brain's capacity to run detailed internal models of future events. Most people's mental simulations are relatively vague, yours are high definition. Your imagination doesn't just sketch a possibility, it inhabits it. It puts you inside the worst-case scenario and lets you feel it before you have to live it. This is not a malfunction. This is your brain doing exactly what it was built to do, running simulations so you can prepare for outcomes before they arrive. The cost is that a brain running high-definition worst-case simulations experiences those simulations as something close to reality. The stress is real, the fear is real, The exhaustion of having already lived through something that hasn't happened yet, that is real too. If this already feels uncomfortably accurate, if you've spent years living through futures that never arrived, this channel exists for exactly that. You're welcome to subscribe. The next trait is the hardest one to admit. Trait 4. You use worry as a form of control. Here's what this looks like from the inside. You know rationally that worrying about something doesn't change whether it happens. You know this, and yet you cannot stop. Because somewhere beneath the rational knowing, there is a belief, older than logic, written into the nervous system before you had words for it. That worrying is doing something, that the act of anticipating the worst is a form of preparation, that if you think through every possible disaster carefully enough, you will somehow be protected from them. Psychology links this to what researchers call the illusion of control, a cognitive pattern in which a person engages in mental or behavioral rituals that feel protective even when they have no causal effect on the outcome. In simple terms, worry feels like action, and action feels safer than helplessness. This is why you can't just stop worrying when someone tells you to. Stopping would mean surrendering the feeling that you're doing something, and the feeling of doing something is the only thing standing between you and the terrifying openness of not knowing what comes next. It's late at night. Something good happened today. Something you've been working towards, something that by any reasonable measure should make you feel relieved. And you're lying in the dark, and instead of relief, your mind is already 10 steps ahead, finding the way it could fall apart, building the case for why it won't last, rehearsing the disappointment before the disappointment has any reason to arrive, and you know it's irrational. You know you should just let yourself feel good. But something in you cannot put the scanner down, cannot stop watching the horizon for what might be coming. That is not negativity. That is a nervous system doing the only job it ever learned to do, keeping you safe, even when you're already safe, even when nothing is coming. Trait 5. You process emotional pain through anticipation rather than experience. This is the trait that explains why the worry is often worse than the thing itself. For most people, difficult emotions arrive when something happens. For you, they often arrive before it happens. You pre-experience the loss, you pre-experience the rejection, you pre-experience the failure in such detail, with such emotional vividness, that by the time the actual event arrives, if it arrives at all, you have already grieved it. Psychology calls this anticipatory anxiety, the experience of emotional distress in response to imagined future events rather than present ones. In simple terms, your emotional system doesn't wait for the bad thing to happen. It starts processing the pain the moment it becomes a possibility. The cost is exhausting and real. You carry the weight of things that may never happen. You grieve futures that never come to pass. You live through losses that exist only in the simulation. But there's something else here too. A person who can pre-experience pain with that level of detail and vividness is a person of extraordinary emotional depth. The same capacity that makes you anticipate the worst is the capacity that makes you feel everything fully. That is not a flaw. That is a form of richness that most people never develop. Trait 6. Catastrophizing is not the problem. It is the solution your mind found to an older problem. This is the trait that ties everything together. The scanning for danger, the defensive pessimism, the vivid simulations, the worry as control, the anticipatory grief. None of these developed because something went wrong with you. They developed because something happened. That required your mind to build a protection system, an environment that was unpredictable, a loss that arrived without warning, a repeated experience of being caught off guard by something painful that your nervous system decided never again. Psychology describes this as a nervous system adaptation, a set of cognitive and emotional responses that developed not as a disorder, but as a solution. In simple terms, your brain catastrophizes because catastrophizing once worked. It kept you vigilant, it kept you prepared, it kept you from being as blindsided as you once were. And nervous systems that find a solution don't easily give it up, even when the original problem is long gone. Even when you're safe now in ways you couldn't have imagined then. You were never someone who couldn't think positively. You were someone whose mind was trained by experience to treat the future as something that required watching and built the most sophisticated watching system it knew how to build. That system kept you safe. It gave you foresight that others don't have. It made you someone who is rarely caught off guard, who plans for what others ignore, who carries a depth of awareness about how things can go wrong, that most people only develop after something has already gone terribly wrong. That is not damage. That is depth. And the work is not to dismantle the system. The work is to slowly, carefully teach the system that it is allowed to rest, that the danger it was built to watch for is not always coming, that good things are sometimes allowed to simply be good. You were never broken. You were built to protect yourself in the only way your mind knew how. Which trait hit closest to home? Drop a number in the comments. Subscribe, you're in the right place.